Hello, everybody. I'm Ed Parcaut, your host of Helping the Brave. Let's bring in our guest today, Austin Holmes. Austin, how you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful. It's been a wonderful day. You wake up, you have that positive mindset, and the day actually agrees with you. It's really good to see that happen.
Well, that's good because that's not how my day went. But anyway.
Yeah, not all of them go like that.
But you're in North Carolina, is that correct?
Yeah, we're right at the edge of the mountains in between Charlotte and Asheville. We chose it because it's the most beautiful place we could find.
How's the humidity there compared to the rest of North Carolina?
It's better than because we go down into Charlotte for business all the time. My wife has been an EO member, and we experience the shift of that 500-700 feet of elevation, whatever it is, and so it's a little better up here. I grew up in Florida. I'm used to the humidity, and it's nice having a little bit less than that, certainly.
Well, it's nice to be in air conditioning and not worried about sweating.
So. Yeah, that too.
Yeah, I'm in California, Modesto. We're getting hot today. We're hitting 108, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. My wife.
We cool off. We cool off in the evening. We'll go down to probably 69. So.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah. Because we have that Pacific Ocean that's really cold, so that air comes off of there and cools us down. So that's where we're positive. White people ask me all the time why I don't leave, and I'm saying that's why. No humidity, and it cools down at night.
So. Heather and I met in San Diego, my wife, and so I'm familiar with the California life. It's
but San Diego's totally different. It doesn't get hot down there. I mean, it cools off in the evening like nobody's business. It's a totally different world. It's only hot when there's no air, like there's no breeze at all, and you're 90 and you're in a place that doesn't have air conditioning. There's the only time that it's hot down there. So, cool. Yeah, because that's where I was stationed at Camp Pendleton at the hospital there.
Okay.
So you were in the Navy.
Yeah, I was at Coronado. I was stationed at Mobile Unit 3 out there for about 5 years. And
how'd you get an EOD?
I went in straight off the streets. I got the contract. I had just graduated from college. The last year of school, I kind of started training, read all of the books on all the different programs, stick couch, all that, and figured out the Navy was the life for me, being a Florida boy. And originally, I wasn't keen on being stuck in the middle of the country at Fort whatever. And the alternate was the Air Force. And I actually knew a combat controller from college. And he was one of the inspirations to going down this path because he had some experience in Afghanistan, I believe, doing airfield prep work for bringing guys in.
And all right, so you joined the Navy after school. How long were you in?
7 and some change. I did my initial tour, or my initial contract was 6 years, and then I extended until the end of my tour, where got another deployment in because of that.
Question for you. You said you were out of college. Did you go in as enlisted?
Yeah, I did. Ran into
Is there something wrong with you?
Yeah, I ran into a little bit of trouble with the black and whites in Orlando, and so I got that experience for a night, and I was a terrible student in college. I had come out of high school with like a 3.98 GPA, and was set up on the engineering track, switched to business, and I pretty much partied through school. And so I did actually look at going to law school because I had barely good enough grades for that. Took the LSAT, did pretty well on that without really studying for it. And then I looked at the legal system. I'm like, do I want to do this as a living? No. I was on a championship team in high school, and I didn't do any of that in college, so I missed that team environment. So not only not wanting to go into law because it seemed like it was a miserable existence, I also wanted to find a high-level team again to be part of. And so I started looking at special operations programs and ended up selecting EOD. I had bad eyesight as well. And the first recruiter I ever walked into, I talked to an officer recruiter, and she said it's going to be challenging to get you in the regular officer class, much less one of these elite units. Uh, and that was absolutely what I cared about more, because she's like, there's 25 people selected nationwide every year, and 20 of them are coming from the academy in ROTC. And so you have one of 4 slots, and those dudes are ultra marathon runners and just monsters of human beings with perfect GPAs, which I had none of. I was not the cream of the crop specimen. I was definitely in shape and uh, made it through, obviously, but I wasn't that candidate that they were looking for.
Somebody's not happy.
Yeah, and this was 2012, I think. It might have
Right.
been 2011 when I went and saw that recruiter, and everybody was just trying to find a job. Like, the economy was miserable, no jobs coming out of school in the public sector, so uh, opportunities like that were hard to come by.
But then went in as enlisted.
Right,
Got on.
and reading the books, I am doing the research that I had, which it's funny that definitely carries forward into business now. The research that I'd done, like, okay, yeah, you're still doing the work, and that's what I cared about. I cared about making a difference. I cared about being a part of the team, and I knew there was also the opportunity to transition if I wanted to stay in long term to go officer. So that was in the back of my mind as well.
And did something happen to you? Is that why? What changed your mind? What happened in your? Because we're just kind of normally I go, why'd you join the Navy? How come you picked it? All the kind of way through. But I like the conversation we're having right now. Um, y y the time you're in, did something happen? Is that why you got out, or you just had enough?
I initially went in saying, like, all right, I'm gonna do my first contract and be good, maybe extend once. I never planned on making it a career because I knew I wanted to eventually go into business. I went to school for it. I loved it. And I wanted to serve while I still could. About 50% of the guys historically in my family have been military. So I absolutely had the option of not doing it just as much as I had the kind of family history to go and serve. But I did want to serve. I found EOD and recognized that they were kind of on the cutting edge at that point in the war, doing the work that was both helping people and fighting the enemy.
So what exactly did you do? Because
Uh,
EMT is a broad thing,
yeah. So I got through school, and throughout that process, I think as soon as we got out of boot camp, Iraq wound down for our units, and then right before we graduated school, Afghanistan went away as a mission set for us. And so my first pump was out on a boat. So EOD sitting on a boat is what I did the first time, watching planes come in, making rookie mistakes. And like, part of what happened there was I actually ended up divorced after that. And the first deployment tells you a lot about your partner. I'll say that. So
not a lot of people can hang.
yeah, and I was hot fill, one of the guys on the team that was already on the boat. He ended up getting an officer package accepted, and so he had to take off to go to whatever the school up in New England is. I can't remember the name right now. And so I was the new guy. I had been at the unit like 2 months maybe, and they sat our platoon down and said, all right, one of you guys is going. Who's it going to be? And I was about the third guy to volunteer because the first guy called his wife. The second guy, I don't remember what happened with him. And then I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. And I should have called my wife at that point, and she wasn't real happy about that. But I brought her lobster home for that's one of the great things about being in San Diego as a diver. You get to go lobster diving. It's very good hands-on practice.
Yeah. Well, and also you learn how to dive in very dark places.
And cold.
Yes. That's why I learned to dive was in San Diego. And that the best part of that. And I even had dry suits, had the heads up display, you name it, as a private person. But when you learn in San Diego, you can dive almost anywhere.
Right.
Because they ask you, where'd you learn to dive? You say Hawaii. They're like, oh, we got a problem here.
Well, where we really learned to dive is Panama City, which, ironically enough, that my family helped found the city way back in the day, and ended up in dive school there. But that water is so murky in the bay because eventually you make it out of the ocean, but the majority of the time you're in the bay, and it's just like silty, nasty water. And I ended up rolling because I almost blew my eardrum out in dive school the first time. And we had no wetsuits the first time. And by the time I started my second class, the first class was like a November, December class. And then it was January, February. And they're like, here's your wetsuits, which was an interesting thing in Florida to have to wear 5 mil wetsuits. So,
because it's pretty warm.
That time of year, it's pretty cold. And I mean,
what's cold? What's cold? What's cold to you guys?
I don't know what the water temp would be, but
San Diego's cold. All right. I mean, right now it's even ridiculously colder than normal. So
definitely not San Diego cold. But when you're sitting in that water swimming for a couple hours, you definitely lose some body heat. And it was nice. The first class we actually got faster swim times because the wetsuit slows you down, but it's a little bit warmer for sure inside the wetsuit.
All right, so you're on the ship and you're on there for a while, and then you did your first tour, but you extended, didn't you?
Right. Well, there's a couple other things that ended up happening in there. The motorcycle monster got me. I slid out on the side of the Laguna and popped my shoulder out of place, tore like 4 different things. Tried to work through it, and of course the Navy, being the Navy, is like, hey, go to 6 months of physical therapy. So I continued the workup on my second team, which was just an ATFP team, to Bahrain, I believe. I'd have to go back and look. And my clavicle was actually like 5 centimeters separated. So I was walking around like with a little pop out on my shoulder, and that was an interesting period. Ended up I needed surgery, and so I got pulled off that team like a year into the workup, and then had surgery, got to sit out for 6 months and recover, do all the fun stuff, worked in operations for that time, and then R&T as well. Came back and got on another team, and the LPO made chief like right away. And so me as an E5 ended up getting the LPO slot, and I think I might have made first class at that same point. And so I did the workup, and then we went off to Dubai for my second deployment. And I added an extension somewhere in that time frame. Not sure exactly when.
Did you dive in Dubai?
Yeah, so we were force protection for the ships coming into Dubai, and spent a lot of time at the port. There was a great period where, the Gatorade flavor Riptide Rush, nice purple looking one. So the port of Dubai actually had that color for about a week, and we were diving in it, like dead cats floating around. It was gross, and we had to go full face masks for a lot of that because the water was so contaminated. But
why were you diving that? Just make sure there was nothing in there?
Yeah, it's again, anti-terrorism, force protection stuff of making sure that the pilot boats and any craft that are approaching our ships as they come in or leave, the tugs and that kind of thing, making sure that they're clear, that there's nothing inside, diving underneath. Some of them were easy enough to just kind of snorkel it, but for the bigger tugs, having a scuba jug definitely helped out.
Gotcha.
And we did a fair amount of robotics stuff too. Those were newer. I don't want to say they were new, but the mini submersibles. They were radio controlled. You could do a decent job of clearing with those as well, but a lot more effort, honestly, than just throwing on some scuba jugs and diving in.
All right. So after this, you eventually get out. How did that transition work? How did you work?
So I came back from that deployment and only had a couple months left. And of course I had all my time saved up. So I had the whole 60-day paid leave. I can't even remember what it's called. And so I spent that time getting ready. And I had met my current wife, Heather, who I run Publicity for Good with. I had met her at that point. And
Austin, we'll get there. We'll get to your businesses. Don't worry. All right.
Yeah. Oh my, yeah. She was just starting the business when I met her, but we wanted to travel. And we looked at all the options when I was in Dubai still of like van life and travel trailers. And all right, there's Airbnb hopping, like so many options. Do we live as like nomads internationally? So we looked at
Austin, I have a question. Where did you meet her at? Because you're in Dubai.
I had met her in San Diego.
Okay.
So I think we had like 6 months or so before I left. Like we met in like February, and then I left for deployment in November. And I knew like, okay, this is a good opportunity for another test, and make sure that somebody does stick around. And she was incredible during that time. And we ended up coming. I came back from deployment, and we got on the road in an Airstream shortly thereafter. So we, throughout the course of the deployment, we worked through that and figured out what we wanted to do, where we wanted to go, and what we were looking for. The first question was beach or mountains. And
what year?
That would have been 19. So
okay.
The deployment was 18, 19, and I came back in like June or July of 19 from deployment. Went on terminal leave in August.
So you found out. You remember now what it's called?
Yeah, I just need a little time. I might have been even July that I went on terminal because I had 60 days, and I ended up separating, I think September 19th, and so I got out at a pretty good time. But we went to Bali for a month, and that was like October and November, and that was like my get out of the military, go someplace fun, because I'd been, these less fun places. People like Dubai, but honestly, I wasn't a huge fan.
You don't like the heat?
I don't. It's just
the sandstorms.
It all looks the same. Like I'm the son of an architect, and like when every building looks the same, it's like okay. Of course, they have some wonderful buildings. The Burj Khalifa being the big one, and I forget the name of the other building that's like right on the water, kind of by itself. Gorgeous building. The one the Red Bull guys landed on, which was insane. That stuff. I wanted to go someplace good, and we had heard about Bali from whoever, and went and spent 3 weeks there, and had an amazing time. I don't know how it is now. This is right before COVID, but we flew there through Japan, and when we were coming back, hit quick layover in China. Interesting thing, driving around the streets on this little tour bus that we took on for 6 hours or whatever, and no one's on the streets except for like tourists. And we were wondering, this is like November of 19, right? Wondering like, what's going on? Why is everybody just at work? I thought they were being industrial. But it turns out the streets were empty for a different reason. So we flew back from China at that point and got on the road with the Airstream shortly thereafter.
Where'd you start in? San Diego?
Yeah, we started with San Diego, but we were pretty close to Christmas, so we made a pretty quick trip across to Florida to visit my parents in Jacksonville, and spent December in the Jacksonville area, and then went down in January, did most of Florida, followed by Georgia, moving up South Carolina, North Carolina, and North Carolina is when COVID really became a thing. We got shut down pretty much the second week, if you want to say that, because they were not allowing RV reservations for less than a month during the like 21 days thing. And so we picked a place right on the river just north of Asheville, gorgeous place. So we ended up being there like a month and a half, and that was actually pretty awesome. And we got a lot of work done. Business definitely took a hit. I had transitioned to helping with the business, at least partially, up to that point. I spent half my time doing travel stuff and the other half helping out.
And for people who don't know, what was the business?
Yeah, so Publicity for Good is my wife's PR agency that she started in 2016. So she was growing pretty steadily. I came on board, started helping, even on the deployment in Dubai. I was always good at spreadsheets, so I kind of helped in that regard. Was able to actually take a lot of the process and procedure and SOPs that you've learned in the military and apply those kind of same models and frameworks to the agency. And so we saw steady growth. COVID hit us pretty hard. I think we lost like a third of our clients in a week. And, we definitely had to sit down with the team like, hey, we're not getting rid of anybody except for the one person that needed to be fired anyway. But we fought, and over that month and a half that we were staying on the river where we had nothing else to do but work, we actually like kind of created a rocket ship of the business and continued moving forward at a great pace. That continued on the road for most of the next 2 years. And then we ended up getting married at the end of 2020. And after that, we had picked North Carolina, and we had a little bit more exploring for specific towns, but we ended up in Morganton, North Carolina.
Why North Carolina?
Oh, this is a whole
I mean, you've been all over, so yeah.
I was talking about spreadsheets. So we, of course, said mountains. So even though we were traveling a bunch of other places, we were specifically looking at places with mountains to live. It's peaceful. We love seeing the view. Like we've been here for a couple of years now, and we love driving around and seeing mountains in the background. Like it still gets to me whenever I see it, especially when there's this amazing sunset over them. But we kind of finalized down to Tennessee and North Carolina as far as just the places we wanted to live. I had made a spreadsheet and gone through all of these different categories, laws, tax rate, kind of the future, beauty, like what the population's like, all kinds of different things, like anything that we could think of. A huge factor that ended up coming into it is we almost got hit by a tornado when we were in Alabama, and Heather was not a fan of that. So we tried to stay away from the States with tornadoes.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
Yeah. So Heather's originally from Ohio. I am originally from the Jacksonville area. And so it was also kind of meeting in the middle of the parents of Columbus, Ohio, and Jacksonville. And it's funny. Our office, if you Google map it, is like 4 minutes difference between the houses. And we didn't do that on purpose, but that's what it ended up being, is really meeting in the middle. When it came down to Tennessee and North Carolina, we went to almost every small town over 5,000 population in the mountain regions of both states. So we've been to a couple hundred towns, I think. And we love Tennessee. We think North Carolina is a little prettier. We also have some family in North Carolina. My brother is in the Raleigh area, and Heather's cousin is in Hickory, which is like one town over. And so the family was partly a draw to it as well.
But it didn't matter where you were, because your business was pretty much just mobile, I guess you could call it.
Right. It was remote even before. And so we were used to the whole remote working thing. Our team was spread out all over the US and in the Philippines as well. Like that was the first person Heather ever hired. Was I don't know if you're familiar with Tim Ferriss's book, 4 Hour Work Week. He talks about the India version of it, but Heather had somehow gotten the advice, hey, hire an assistant in Philippines. So like our team has always been split between the US and Philippines. And we actually added Brazil now as well. We love our Brazilian team too.
And they're all VAs in both places.
I mean, there's all kinds of different positions. The kind of core role of our business is publicist. And so we've hired that mostly in the US, but pretty much every other position we've at least tried overseas. Not always been successful in that. But yeah, it's been a wild ride. The past 2-3 years are a whole other story too. I guess it's 3 years now. Yeah. So that was another reason to move to North Carolina, is we felt we could make a bigger difference here. In Tennessee, we're not going to change a whole lot. And so us being able to contribute on the local level to North Carolina was a part of the decision as well.
So what's on the forecast now?
Fixing what we broke.
What did you break?
So I
mean, because you don't break. So I do another podcast called Enter Edison. Your greatest accomplishments come from your greatest defeats. And so it's not, everybody thinks a business is an overnight success, but it's like 15 years of overnight successes. It takes a while to really do real well. I mean, like it takes a while. I mean, some people get it done real quick, but then they grow it to where you want it to be, and everything else takes time.
And there's always another level.
But I assume you guys want to have a work-life balance with the kids and everything else going on.
I actually disagree with that phrase. I'll be a little contrary here. I don't think there's ever really a balance. I think you prioritize and you do the best you can with what you're doing in that moment. And you can choose how to split your time. I think this is super apparent when it comes to deployments. Like you're definitely not balanced with your work life in those moments. You're very focused on what you're doing, making sure that you're safe and that your team is safe. But for me, it's okay. What's the one thing that helps our family move forward? And so in some moments that's growing the business, because it'd be super cool to spend all day with my kids as they run around in the background. Hopefully you can't hear that.
I can hear that. That's why earlier you didn't hear me. I said somebody's not happy because I could hear them background. Because I have 5 kids and they're all at the house now, thank goodness. But when I say work-life balance, I never mean that it's not going to be out of balance, but your goal is to have enough time with everything that you want to have the time with. That's when I look at I don't think there's this amount of time with this and this. I don't think it could ever be perfectly balanced, but there's going to be time where you have more time with your family and then less time with your family because of work.
Yeah.
That's just, but I don't want to be like the madmen of the world where they're never home and the kids go, that's totally different now.
I get that. So we want to build something big. That's, if you dig into Heather's background, like her family was very successful in the Columbus area. And so duplicating that here duplicating that with what we're doing, very different industry, is something we want to do to kind of maintain that legacy. We also want to make a difference in society. Like it is about helping people for us. Like that's literally built into the name of our company, Publicity for Good, is how do we make a positive impact? Because we can build a business and do whatever and make money, but doing it in a way where it actually provides good stuff for the people around us, for our team, for our clients, like that's important to us, is that purpose-driven element, and that's who we like to work with. So, and we also encourage from a very practical perspective, if you don't have that element in your business, you're at a disadvantage because consumers are looking for that. We specifically work with like a lot of food, beverage, beauty, and fashion brands, consumer packaged goods. And so it's very easy for them to put like 1% for the planet or whatever organization they're supporting. Like for us personally, we've supported EOD Warrior Foundation in the past. And like that could go on our packaging. It's not as easy to put it on a sales call for us, but if it was packaged goods, then that'd be an easy logo to throw on there.
Gotcha. Yeah, because I was going to ask you who your perfect client is.
Oh, we have them right now. Well, there's really like two. Char and Nat Patch are two awesome clients that we've been working with for a little while now. And they're established businesses that have such an opportunity to grow their impact in the U.S. Char is a gluten-free bread company, and then Nat Pat is a sticker that you can put on your kids or yourself, depending on, they have a couple different options of essential oils that are going to either like repel mosquitoes or calm you down. And so it's a much healthier alternative to medicating kids. It's just, hey, let's use something natural. So those are two ideal clients for us in the CPG space. Awesome to work with and have a great product. I think Char is actually the leading gluten-free bread in the U.S., but no one knows their branding. But they're crushing it in sales. So,
wow. Now you have a book coming up, or did it already come out?
It's still being written. So I'm about I think it's 25,000 words or so at this point into a book. 90-day fame. I hope I'm saying that right. It's 90-day fame or 90-day famous. I should know that.
It's fame, according to the thing I read in right now.
I've debated on those two. I think I've bought both websites. That's
why 90-day fame. Is that because of the way you guys were going around in the RV, or did you do stuff on YouTube? What do you mean by that 90-day fame?
So, and this is a process that I still have to go through. It's really way less about being famous. For the brands that we work with, for the personalities that we work with, it's, how do you build your brand? And that is a hot topic. But it's a very practical thing that's numbers driven when it comes down to it. Brand is, are you known? And what are you known for, being the second part of it. But unless you have that exposure at the level that you want, and it can mean different levels for different people. If it's a product, then I would say more so, are you a name brand as opposed to are you famous? And that's what it's about, is the steps that you can take to build that brand. And not everybody needs to use every step, but certainly there are things that you can do to build your brand, make a bigger impact in the world. And hopefully, in my view, that impact is positive.
Gotcha. Austin, thanks for being on the show today.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing your story and where you're going. Was there anything else you want to add before we go?
If you want to check us out, we're at publicityforgood.com. We have a new software coming out as well, Signal Raptor, and that's all about making PR more accessible. So if you have a small brand and you're trying to grow that brand, that's a great opportunity.
So the Signal Raptor is what you're talking about. Is it like an app? What is it for?
Yeah, it's a full custom software designed around making PR more accessible. Definitely a lower price point than agency services. That's a complaint that we get all the time, is PR is expensive. I can't afford this. And that's because you're paying for experience, relationships, and somebody's time. And the industry is very much like you would see how lawyers charge of a retainer with hourly. We operate differently because we think that's we want to see our results. We want to see our business as results driven more so than hourly basis. So
gotcha. All right, well, check it out. And when your book comes out, send me the information that it's coming out, so I can, if you need somebody to reread it and tell you anything about it, let me know. Because my book came out a couple Februarys ago, Financial Freedom, Building Personal Wealth Through Home Ownership, and I sent it out to people to read. And then when it was done, I sent it out to them too. And because you never know, sometimes you think you have everything perfect in it, and next thing you know, all this stuff that you use and people read it, they read it the same way you do. You need somebody to think it totally different. I had one guy went through, he goes, so you have 5 mistakes in this book, and no one caught them.
I love that topic though. Like that, when I met Heather, that was what I was working on, was real estate investing. And we had gotten up to 3 properties and actually sold those in 2020, kind of while we were getting ready to travel or on the road. So,
well, you being a vet, you have the VA loan that makes it so much easier to buy.
Right. And I actually still have that. We
Never goes away.
Yeah, so I have mine ready to go whenever we find that fourplex. So
the only problem is you got to live in one of them.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
But you're on 22 acres.
Yeah, there is that. So
there's just that little thing there.
We
can talk off air, so we don't have recording of it. All right, we'll talk about it. Again, Austin, thanks so much for being here. Go check out his company, Publicity for Good. And again, thank you so much for being on the show today and sharing your story.